Welcome to the Damn Strong podcast. I'm your host, Bree, and I'm a full-time online fitness coach, and my passion is to educate women on all things fitness. I help women just like you step into the power of knowledge and commitment to ultimately live your best and strongest life. In this podcast, we'll talk about being damn strong in our body, mind, and life. I'll be teaching you how to navigate nutrition, strength training, and mindset challenges. So get ready to take some notes because we're building a damn strong life. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Bree, and this is the Damn Strong podcast. And today we're going to be talking about how to make a deficit not suck. Okay. A deficit is not the most fun thing in the world. I'll be completely honest. It's just not. And it's not where you're going to be most of your life. Like most of your life should be spent at maintenance, maintaining your body weight, enjoying your life, having more food. But there are us that have fat loss goals, which is totally fine. And so if you're in a deficit currently or planning to be in one, it should not suck. Are there certain sacrifices, trade-offs that you have to make? Sure, totally. But you should not be miserable in your deficit. And so we're going to go through, funny enough, I don't know how this always works out this way, but 5 points that I want to go through. And the first point, I just want to kind of disclaim, if you followed me for a while, you're going to hear this first point and you're going to be like, well, duh, Brie, I already know this. Just listen to the whole part. Okay. I think this first one is the most important and makes it so that way all the other ones can fall into place a lot easier. So hear me out. If you know me, you've been following me for a while, just listen through the whole first part. I'm going to get to some other ones as well. If you're new to following me and you haven't heard this, I think this will give you some light bulb moments because I have certain topics and things that I want to dive into of why this is important and some markers of how do you know that you've built something sustainable, right? Oh, I just kind of reviewed it. I didn't mean to say it. I was trying to hold up from saying it, but the first one is how to make a deficit not suck is to make it sustainable. I know, again, for a lot of you who have followed me for a long time, you're like, well, duh, Brie, you preach that all the time. But listen, let's talk about why that's so important. So a lot of people out there, when they go into a deficit, the reason why it's so important for it to be sustainable is because when it's not sustainable, it's hard to follow through long enough for you to actually reach your goals, right? So there might be a lot of you out there where you're just whenever I go into a deficit, whenever I go into, trying to lose body fat, I do really, really well for 2 weeks. And then I hit on week 3, it's downhill for me. That's probably a pretty good sign that it's not sustainable what you've built. There could be a plethora of other things. Maybe, something with work happened or a personal thing or whatever, but it's every single time you try to do this on week 3, you just hit this hurdle and you have a hard time following through on week 3. That's probably a sign that what you're doing isn't sustainable. Other things that will heighten your ability to make your deficit sustainable is making sure you're enjoying your favorite foods, right? I'm not saying that, oh, my favorite thing to do is crush an entire pizza. Obviously, there's going to be some trade-offs and different things you make being in a deficit. But if you want to enjoy pizza, have that pizza. You either can, order from Domino's and have 2 slices, or you can make something lower calorie homemade. If you integrate the foods that you love to enjoy into your deficit, it's going to make it more sustainable because for a lot of people, they cut out carbs, they cut out pizza, they cut out burgers, these favorite things that they love and enjoy. And so when it comes to week 3 and they're having a pizza night with friends, they really struggle because the food's right in front of them instead of being able to make that work and saying okay, I can make pizza working with my lifestyle. Another one that I think is a big marker, and I noticed this probably a few months ago, I was like, you know what? When a lot of people go on vacation, right? Before they go on vacation, they're so excited to go because a lot of times the deficit or the diet that people have themselves set up on is so unsustainable that they're so excited to go on vacation and not have to do all those things. They're excited to get a break. And then at the end of that vacation, they are dreading coming home because they know coming home means that they don't get to enjoy pizza. They don't get to enjoy glasses of wine or all these things that they've cut out of their life. And so they're dreading coming back. And something I've noticed over time is my clients are so excited to come back from vacation and get back to routine because we've built something sustainable, right? They love and they enjoy vacation. They have a great time, but they also really love and treasure their routine and how routine makes them feel. And on top of that routine, they're not experiencing anything at home that they did on vacation, right? They had pizza on vacation, they're having pizza at home. They had pasta on vacation, they're having pasta at home. there's maybe some other things they're enjoying a little bit more on vacation, but there's not this huge drastic change in what they're doing, their diet and all that stuff from vacation to coming home. If anything, it's all of that's being transferred, and the same happens at home, but they're more in routine and they're excited for that. So those are my kind of 3 markers of how you know if what you're doing is going to be sustainable in a deficit. Is 1, you're working in your favorite foods. And again, you can make modifications, make swaps, but trying to work in things that you really enjoy. If you hit a hurdle every X amount of weeks and you fall off the wagon completely, that's probably a pretty good sign that what you're doing isn't sustainable. And then you dread coming back to it when it comes to vacation or whatever that may be, or you have a weekend away. I want to include this example of a client because I think she's the perfect analogy of at least 2 of these factors. She came to me and she let me know that she's like, I do really, really good for 2 weeks. And it's like every 3rd week that I fall off. I was like, okay, we're going to work on that. We're going to figure out what that is. And again, it could be that's not sustainable. It could be, maybe it's her period or whatever. I don't know. It could be a multitude of things. But I was like, okay, we're going to figure this out and work this through. And the first week we were working together, she was going to go home to see her parents. She's going to do the drive. And she told me every single time that we drive home, go see my parents, I always get in and out. And she goes, I guess I can't get in and out anymore. And I go, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean you can't get in and out? She's like, I'm assuming you're not going to let me eat in and out. I was like, no, of course we're going to get in and out. Do we maybe need to make some modifications to what you order? If you're getting like the burger and animal fries, okay, maybe we don't get that, but like, let's get a burger and you don't have to get it protein style. Let's get it with the bun and then get some fries, maybe not animal style, but let's get regular fries and have you split that instead of just having the whole fries to yourself. And she's like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's totally do that. And so we found out over time that, it was actually that she wasn't including a lot of her favorite foods. A few weeks later, it was like I think it was actually on week 3, she ate cornbread. And she was like, oh my gosh, I just had cornbread and it was amazing and I enjoyed it. I feel so satisfied. And she goes, you know what? I'm realizing that this is always what threw me off. Previously, I would see cornbread as like carbs and unhealthy and like I can't be eating this and I need cornbread. And I'd be like, well, I screwed up, so I might as well not do this anymore. And she'd fall off. And so for her, what was making it unsustainable for her, she wasn't including her favorite foods and enjoying it in some way. And so therefore she was hitting that hurdle, the second point that I talked about. And so she was having this just reoccurring thing over and over and over again. And now she's on her largest consistency streak ever because we found that she wasn't working and incorporating foods that she really, really loved. And that's made all the difference for her. So okay, now that we've talked about sustainability, let's move on to the other 4 points. So the first one I want to bring up is you have to prioritize your goals first. Or another way to say this is prioritize your action goals or your protocols. And the reason I specify that is because if I say prioritize your goals, you might think, oh, okay, I should prioritize losing weight. It's like, no. Losing weight is like the results. What is the action goal that's going to get you there, right? So like think about your workouts, your walks, your tracking, right? Let's prioritize all those things first and then work your way around it. I think too often we leave it to chance to see if it happens, right? You're like, okay, I have a step goal of 8K and I hope I hit 8K instead of being like, okay, tomorrow I have a really, really busy day. I'm going to get 15 minutes early, do a little walk. I'm going to go walk for 15 minutes on my lunch break. And then I get home, I'm going to take the dogs for a walk. And I know I'll hit 8K if I walk that many times during the day. And so you're planning it. You're not leaving it to chance. So prioritizing your goals first is going to make it suck so much less because you're not constantly playing like this Tetris game. Instead of, and I don't know why I'm comparing this to Tetris, but it just makes sense in my brain. Instead of playing Tetris and like getting all these shapes and trying to fit them together and you think you're fitting them, you're not sure if you're fitting them and it's kind of working out. And then you feel this overwhelm and the stress. You're given all the pieces ahead of time. You get to see how it fits. If it doesn't fit, you get to rearrange it all before that day's even happening. So if you can prioritize your action goals first, it'll make a deficit suck so much more less because you're not overwhelmed. And then also leaving the chance if you even get it in the first place, right? So again, your walks, plan those out. Your workouts at the beginning of the week, plan those out. Your tracking, I cannot push this enough. I say it almost all podcasts where I give advice like this is pre-tracking your day. A lot of people will ask me like, Bree, how do you make sure that you hit your calories and your protein each day? It's like, well, I looked the day before. I kind of know what I'm craving for the next day. And so I will punch in my breakfast, which is always the same thing. If you've been following me recently, I have been crushing the cottage cheese and English muffin breakfast. So that is just already in my day. I kind of know what I'm craving for lunch. Maybe if I don't, I'll go ahead and pre-track my dinner because I know what Sage and I are going to have for dinner. We talk about the day before. And then I go ahead and pop in what I think I want for lunch. And if that changes, I always can change it. But I have things pre-planned, so I'm not leaving it to chance, right? Okay, the next one I want to talk about is prepare for the unexpected. And this actually types in with prioritizing your goals first. So when you're prioritizing your goals and you're planning them out, I also want you to have a plan B to your plan A. Now, this can get tricky, right? Because sometimes I feel like if we have a plan B, we will lean on it if it gets us out of something, right? It might be like, okay, my plan A is to work out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, right? But I could see something happening on Friday. So what I'll do is I'll also plan a time to maybe work out on Saturday if I need it. And then Friday rolls around. You're like, oh, I don't feel like working out. I'll just do it Saturday. It's like, no. You have the ability to work out today on Friday. If you have the ability, let's do it. The plan B is there. If for some reason you absolutely cannot do plan A, but I love always having a plan B to my plan A. Same thing happens when I got to a restaurant. I will always usually have something pre-tracked, like two different, I will always like look at the menu ahead of time and then get that pre-tracked, have it in my FitnessPal so I'm ready to go ahead of time. But if I look at a restaurant, I'm like, I'm not really sure what I want. These are like the 3 items that I think I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and put in an entry in my FitnessPal for all 3. They're all 3 relatively the same amount of calories. So I'm just going to pre-track the highest calorie one. So that way, if this is the one I want, awesome, it's tracked. If I want something, the other 2 options and they're a little bit lower calorie, perfect. I swap it out and I just have extra calories for the day. So I like to always, if I can foresee it, create a plan B to my plan A. Now, something else with creating the plan A and the plan B, if you notice that plan B is always happening over plan A, make plan B your plan A. I think a lot of times we get over ambitious and we're like, okay, I'm gonna work out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And you're like, I've got to do this. But if you're always working out, you just find that it always ends up happening that you work out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Start making that your plan A. Have that realistic expectation. So another part in preparing for the unexpected, it's not only having a plan B to your plan A, you need to learn how to pivot. And the reason why is because you'll have a plan A, you'll have a plan B, and then something else will get thrown in your life. It's life. Like things are not going to always go how you have planned. So learning how to pivot is super, super important. And I'll be honest, I think planning actually teaches you to learn how to pivot because the more that you plan, the more you understand what your options are. And so when you have to learn how to pivot, you're like, okay, like I understand this is not going to happen, but in the past I've planned it this way and this could actually apply to the situation. So the more that you plan, I think it does make you better at pivoting. I think the other thing about pivoting is we get so overwhelmed when we have to pivot, right? I'm trying to think of like a really let's say you're going to dinner with some friends, right? You looked up the menu ahead of time. You have 2 different meals picked out based on what you want to get. You know exactly like what to order. You feel super prepared for this dinner out with girlfriends. All of a sudden, last minute, plan as you're driving to the restaurant, right? The plans get changed. You're not even going to that restaurant anymore. So you made a plan A, you made a plan B, okay? And now as you're driving to the restaurant, they've pivoted and say, hey guys, this place, I just got here and I actually found out it's actually closed down. We're gonna have to go somewhere else. Let's just go here next door. You're probably in a little bit of panic. Take a deep breath. 1, see if that place they've switched to has anything similar to what you've already tracked, right? If you tracked a burger at the first place, maybe the second place has a burger, right? Or worst case scenario, if you're going from like American food to like Chinese food, like a complete 180 and like the food options that are going to be there, take a deep breath. When you get there, you could excuse yourself to the bathroom if you want. You actually could say sit in your car for a second. You can only take like 5-10 minutes. You can look at the menu, review, or when you get inside the restaurant, look at the menu, decide what you want. If you don't want to pull out your phone and track at the table, excuse yourself to the bathroom. You can sit in a stall if you want to. So learn how to calm yourself down when a pivot happens. I think a lot of times with clients, what I find is that they freak out and they just don't do anything and saying, okay, let me take a deep breath. What do I have control over? And worst case scenario, like I'm not going to get mad at a client if like last minute the switch happens and they don't do anything. They don't take that time to look at the menu and then pre-track and figure it out. Maybe there's like, you know what? It's very like, again, maybe you're at the restaurant that you planned and the 2 meals that you had picked out, they're out of season. They don't have any of the ingredients for it. You're like, crap, now I have to go on the fly and just pick something. and the waiter's at the table, I'm not going to excuse myself to go to the bathroom. That's going to be awkward. You make your best decision. It's okay. Pivots like that crazy of a pivot doesn't happen that often. And so the amount of effect that little teeny one moment that's going to happen once every like 3-6 months is not going to be this massive needle that's going to affect your fat loss, right? So I'm trying to show you examples how you can pivot, calm down the overwhelm, adjust, make a plan Z. But at the end of the day, these like super crazy last minute changes that you absolutely have no control over don't happen as often as you think. Okay, next one is make the choice to do the right thing easy. And what I mean by that is when it comes to working out or tracking your food or what meal to pick, high protein options, all of that, make the choice that you know is the choice that's going to move you towards your goals, the easier one, right? And the best example I have of this, or that comes to the top of my brain, is I said this in so many podcasts, but I keep freezer meals on hand at all times. And the reason why is if I get really overwhelmed, out of nowhere, a busy workday comes up, may have to rush a fur baby to the animal hospital, Sage has a flat tire, I don't have any time to make food. I always have a very easy, low calorie, high protein option in my freezer. So I don't have the choice to not make the decision that's going to move me towards my goals. And so I think the same thing when it comes, that's a great food example. The other one could be like workout stuff. It's like, okay, make the choice to go to the gym, make it the easy choice. And part of maybe making it an easier choice is not going home first, right? I have found when I was working at my corporate job that if I went home first before I went to the gym, woof, I was probably not getting to the gym. Like it was an 89% likelihood I was probably not getting up off the couch or leaving my apartment then to go to the gym. And so early on, I was like, look, I've got to make going to the gym after work a lot easier of a choice. I'm going to bring all my stuff to work. I'm not only going to bring my stuff to work, I'm going to change at work. I'm not going to change at the gym. I'm going to go into a bathroom, go into a stall. I'm going to change in that stall. So when I get in the car, I'm already dressed and ready to go. I'm making the decision to drive to the gym even easier, because I think a lot of times when you're not all changed, and you don't have to change at work, but when you're not all changed in the car, leaving from work, you're like, oh, I could really just turn right here and go home, but I need to turn left. Like you're already dressed. You're already chugging your pre-workout. Like it's the easy choice to go to the gym. And that's another one, is like having your pre-workout already made and all of those little things. So when you make the choice, the right choice that you need to be making towards moving to your goals, the easier one, when you're fighting between the choice you know you need to make and the choice that you want to make, it comes down to this emotional response. If we can take the emotional response out of it just a little bit, that emotional response can be, I'm overwhelmed, I don't feel like cooking, whatever it may be. If you take those factors out of it, then making that choice, that easy choice, is going to make things suck. You're basically creating less decisions for yourself. I don't know if you ever heard of the term like decision fatigue. That's why Steve Jobs always talked about that he always wore a black shirt and black pants, because he was making so many decisions a day. He needed to take away the decision of what he was going to wear every single day and make less decision fatigue. If you have so many options that you're always going through, all these mindset things that you're constantly battling, should I go to the gym? Do I need to go home first? Okay, what am I going to eat tonight? How much protein am I hitting? Am I going to hit my calories today? When you're just left with all this unknown, you're not only making so many decisions, but you're also making decisions into the unknown, and then you feel uncertain about it. This kind of ties a lot of this together, of like prioritizing your goals first, of planning things out, right? Preparing for the unexpected, making the choice to do the right thing, the easy thing. It takes away so much decision fatigue. And I get the pushback sometimes for clients of like, maybe they don't want to pre-track first. They don't want to plan things out because it takes time. You know what else takes time is having to do it in the moment, right? Whether you, I've said this again in previous podcasts, and I apologize for repeating it so much, but planning out what days you're going to work out ahead of time takes the same amount of time of trying to decide if you can go work out today and planning of when you can go work out today, and if it's going to work, and if it's going to run with your job, and if you'll have time, and then can you make dinner, can you get the kids, all that. It takes the same amount of time, but you take out that overwhelm and that fatigue. So if anything, I know that a lot of these steps so far I've talked about end up taking time for you to actually do this, but it's going to take time anyways, and you're just making things less overwhelming if you do it ahead of time. Okay, I think this is going to be the last one, but I actually had another one come to my head that I'm going to talk about. So This is actually going to be second to last. So technically we're going to have 6 points that I want to talk about of making a deficit not suck, right? Remember that you chose this. I think just that simple, there's 2 points to this one. Remember that you chose this, and remember that it's not forever, right? I think those two mindset shifts are massive. No one is forcing you to be in a deficit. No one is making you be here, which I think the mindset shift that helps with is you're in complete control. This is your decision. No one is forcing you to do this. This is totally you. And the second part of this isn't forever. Remembering helps you to realize like the sacrifices and trade-offs and all the things that you're making now are not things that you're going to be doing forever. This is for the specific goal and time being. I always just think about it. I always use money for my examples, but like saving for a house, you may be making the choice to, okay, you know what? Normally on Friday nights, we'd always do date night and go out to a steakhouse, but we're going to switch it up. We're going to go to Chili's to make things cheaper. And so you might be like, oh, every Friday you're like, I really want to go back to the steakhouse. And it's like, well, one, back to sustainability, could we work that into your house saving goals, right? Could you go once a month to the steakhouse instead of every single Friday? And two, you only getting to go to the steakhouse once a month or switching that off for your Chili's date isn't forever. You're saving up for a down payment. You're saving up for closing costs. And once you buy that house, things are going to look a little bit different. And so I think remembering that the swaps, the trade-offs and things that you're making aren't going to be forever. Again, this goes back to the first point of like the trade-offs and the swaps that you're making shouldn't be massively different than what you do at maintenance. And that goes back to sustainability. And so, yeah, like I said at the very beginning, like a calorie deficit shouldn't suck, but it's also not the most fun thing in the world. And I think just remembering like, hey, this isn't forever. I have a specific goal and I'm going to get to that goal and then I'm going to maintain that goal. Or if you have, a lot of weight to lose, remember, you also can take things in sections. If you have 50 pounds to lose, you can lose 25 pounds and then take a break and maintain that, and then lose 10 pounds and then take a break and maintain that. You don't have to also lose the weight all in one go. And that might be some of you too. Maybe you've been in a deficit for the last year because you have 50 plus pounds to lose. And you're like, Brie, I'm really struggling to stay in this deficit. Well, yeah, you've been in a deficit mindset for almost a year now. Why don't you give yourself a break? Like, congratulate yourself. Be really proud of yourself. Take a break at maintenance. And then once you've given yourself a break, then go back into a deficit. And the last point that I want to talk about, and this was kind of just a last minute thought add-on, was learn what trade-offs are worth it for you, but also learn what trade-offs aren't worth it for you. And the first thing that comes to mind is alcohol. I have clients and I personally enjoy alcohol, but there's this balance of trade-off, right? Like it's fun to go have a glass of wine and drink with your friends, but then there is the trade-off of if you drink too much, the next day you don't feel great. And maybe actually, let's even back up. That evening, your guard comes down a little bit when you've had some drinks and you're feeling munchy and the self-control is harder. And then the next day you feel like shit and you don't go for a walk and you don't get your workout in. And the next few days, it takes you some time to recover. That trade-off isn't worth it. And so that might actually be like a lifelong trade-off of just like feeling that way isn't worth it. So I think understanding what trade-offs are worth it to you is important, but it's also just important to be like, what isn't worth it to me? And that's so individual because what's worth it for me as a trade-off might not be worth it to you. But if you can understand what trade-offs are worth it or are not worth it to you, it makes a deficit suck less because when you go into a situation, you don't want to make that decision because the trade-off, the balance act of what you're going to have to sacrifice isn't worth what you are wanting in that moment. You make that, I'm going to say mistake, but you make that decision less and less and less because you already know what the trade-off is. You know what that measurable amount. If I do X, Y, Z, this is going to happen. That's not worth it to me. Or if I do X, Y, Z, this is going to happen. That's totally worth it for me. And I'll be honest, a lot of these, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? You're probably going to learn in real time, right? I think one that comes to mind is like an easy one, just like working out in the morning, right? For a long, long time, it wasn't worth it for me to get up early to go work out. It wasn't worth it at all. I was like, I don't want to get up. I want to sleep in more. Like that trade-off of here's what I gain, right? If I wake up early, I get my workout done at the beginning of the day, the chance for anything to disrupt my workout, that chance gets lowered. And then it's not as busy. Those are some great positives, but I decided, previously that those things that I would gain wasn't worth having to wake up earlier. And so I didn't. I always went after work and that was totally fine. That worked. And at some point I was like, look, I don't like being here with the busier crowds. And I understand like I have the flexibility to work out in the morning. Some people don't.
But then I would, work on the afternoon. I'd work out after work. And I was like, look, the packedness of the gym, and then, something last minute will happen, either an appointment or a friend invites me out to dinner or whatever, keeps disrupting with my workouts. It's not worth it to stay at working out in the afternoon, in the evening. So I'm going to switch to morning. And that trade-off, it changed for me, what was worth it, what wasn't worth it. And so I think understanding that when it comes to different parameters in being in a deficit, and I know I talked about like workouts more so, but like steps, calories, food that you're enjoying, alcohol, all of these things, measuring those trade-offs, measuring what's worth it to you. And a lot of times you won't figure out what those trade-offs are and what's worth it and what's not until you go through that experience. And then you note that and you make a decision moving forward that if you're faced with that situation, here are the trade-offs. That's not worth it to you, so you're not going to do it, or that is, and so you're going to do it. All right, guys, that is the end of this episode. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, a free way to support the show is to screenshot this episode, share on your stories, tag me so I can share it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Damn Strong Podcast. Show me some love by leaving a review and sharing a screenshot of this episode on your Instagram stories. Until next time, stay strong.